So today let us start histology of connective tissue. So first we know the group of cells to perform a specific function they convert into tissue. So tissue is nothing but composed of group of cells with the specific features. So the connective tissue is mainly made up of cells, fibers and the ground substance. So let us check it out. First a tissue. Let us see the four main types of tissue, that is our epithelial tissue, muscle tissue, nervous tissue, and these three tissues are connected by a connective tissue. So first we know epithelial tissue, it lines the external surface, internal lining of the skin and some glands, and it makes a glands. And the muscle tissue, it is contractile, its special feature is having the contractile proteins, that is its special feature. And the nerve tissue is nothing but it receives the information, it integrates and also transfers the information to other nerves. And connecting all these three tissues together is nothing but the function of the connective tissue. In all connective tissue is present on in all over our body, and it supports also other tissues. So the stratified epithelium has a connective tissue which gives both structural support and also functional. So not only a stratified epithelium, for any epithelium the connective tissue gives the structural support and also functional support, that is by helping to transfer the blood, oxygen and also waste out of the cell and also pass. So all these substances pass by the connective tissue. So the connective tissue have cells which can defend, that is mainly by macrophages, mast cells. So and also they have a capacity to repair the injured tissue, mainly by formation of scar. So the thick and thin unbranched fibers are present in a collagen fiber, that is the thick one is the collagen. So you can see this is mainly a connective tissue outline structure. So this is a ground substance and these are the fibers and these are the cells which are present in between these fibers. So this is a thick collagen and this is a thin fiber known as reticular fiber. Thick fiber is known as collagen fiber, and in between the branching fibers we can see these are the elastic fibers. Remember, the thick fibers and the thin fibers you can check, these are unbranched, and the elastic fiber is branched. And the ground substance you can see here, they contain glycosaminoglycans, proteoglycans, glycoproteins, etc. So you can see the thick fibers are nothing but collagen and thin are the reticular fibers. So the ground substance contains glycosaminoglycans, proteoglycans, glycoproteins, and the branching fibers are the elastic fibers. So the connective tissue is mainly made up of cells. So the cells may be here fibroblasts, adipocytes and many other cells. And the extracellular matrix. So the extracellular matrix is divided into two. So cells means this cells. Extracellular means in the name itself we can understand, that is other than cell, outside the cell. So these are the cells, and outside the cell we have the extracellular matrix, which is mainly consisting of the ground substance and the fibers. So this is the ground substance and these are the fibers. The ground substance, as we discussed already, GAG, proteoglycan and glycoproteins, and the fibers are nothing but collagen, reticular and elastic. So even the ground substance is mainly formed by the fibroblasts, and fibroblasts take the amino acids and form the fibers. So fibroblast is nothing but the creator of all this connective tissue. The main component of this connective tissue is the fibroblast, which forms the ground substance. It forms the fibers and also it provides all these fibers and support to the connective tissue. So from embryology we can know whenever let us understand the development of a fibroblast and how it is formed. So we know when ovum meets with the sperm, it forms a zygote, and first 2 cell stage, 4 cell stage, morula, blastocyst, bilaminar disc within the 2 weeks and trilaminar disc in the 3 weeks. So in the trilaminar disc we have epiderm, mesoderm, endoderm. So epiderm mainly forms our central nervous system, skin, and mesoderm lines are forms are muscles and forms mesenchyme. Mesenchyme is the one which is forming the connective tissue, and the endoderm is nothing but lining our GIT. So this is a mesenchyme. Mesenchyme is a cells around which you can find some proteins segregated. So this is how the mesenchyme looks. So from mesenchyme only our connective tissue is derived. So first let us see the primitive mesenchymal cells. They are nothing but the first, that is this one. So first mesenchymal cell. So this is present in our yolk sac and produces stem cells for hemopoietic stem cells, that is which can produce our blood cells, RBC, WBC, etc., platelets. And this primitive mesenchymal cells have next travel into liver and spleen, and next the blood form here, and after birth it travels into the bone marrow and have these cells forming the bone. So Okay, so bone marrow also have the cells which are forming the bone, and after birth these primitive mesenchymal cells are mainly present in a bone marrow. Now even now in adult life our blood cells are formed in the bone marrow, all we know. So the primitive mesenchymal cell may also directly reach the connective tissue, but also may come from these all, like from bone marrow it may reach into blood and then come into the connective tissue. So let us see how those pathways are going on. So you can see blood. So why we are discussing about blood now is because blood is also a connective tissue. So the connective tissue directly come from the primitive mesenchymal cells, or also it may come from the base blood bone marrow, from bone marrow to blood and next to the connective tissue. So there are given different names, that is when the mesenchymal cell, that is connective tissue directly coming from primitive mesenchymal cell, then it is known as permanent resident cell because it is directly coming. And if it is roaming here and there from blood marrow, blood, connective tissue, then it is known as wandering cells, or also known as transient connective tissue cells. So first let us understand this pathways, how our connective tissue is formed. So first, permanent resident cells, these are mainly responsible to produce a collagen, reticular, elastic, that is all the three fibers are mainly formed by the permanent resident cell, that is our main cell, fibroblast. So the fibroblast can produce all the three fibers, collagen, reticular, elastic, and also it is capable of producing the glycoprotein. So one thing we need to remember, here you can see the fibroblast. So blast is nothing but whenever the cell is in active stage, and site, whenever you see site at the end, then it is nothing but the cell is in an inactive stage. So here you can see, and one more. So the permanent resident cells, first let us see what are those: fibroblasts, osteoblasts, chondroblasts, adipocyte, endothelial cells, pericyte, mast cells. So all this come under the permanent resident cells. So we have understood about fibroblasts. Let us see about osteoblasts. So osteoblast, here blast indicates active, right? So it may next become inactive also, then it is osteocyte. So this mainly produce collagen. So even osteoblast, that is bone forming cell, also produce collagen, because bone is also made up of collagen fibers for its strength and great, so collagen provides a great support. So chondroblast also can convert to chondrocyte when it is inactive. So the chondroblast produces hyaluronic acid and also collagen. And the adipocyte mainly accumulate the fat and glycerol, we know. So fat along with glycerol form the triglycerides, so we know that. And the endothelial cells in the blood vessels linings, yeah, we know mainly endothelial cells are present in the blood vessel linings. And pericytes, so pericytes are nothing but which makes the new smooth muscles and endothelial cells. So they are present actually even in under the near to the endothelial cells, they are randomly arranged. So this pericytes, whenever their endothelial cells are damaged or any problem, so they can form the smooth muscle and also they can form the endothelial cells. If you remember in our blood vessels histology, in the media the smooth muscles are present. So whenever the smooth muscles are damaged, so that these pericytes can form them. And the mast cells are extremely sensitive cells which are present in every connective tissue except a connective central nervous system, because mast cells are always activated whenever there is an allergic reaction, etc. But when it is present in a connective in a central nervous system, it is more dangerous. So the mast cell is present everywhere in the body except the central nervous system. Now let us see the wandering cells, or also known as transient connective tissue cells. So these are also hemopoietic. First let us see how they are formed. So first we know hemopoietic stem cells, that is the blood forming stem cells are divided into lymphoid stem cells and myeloid stem cells. So the lymphoid stem cells are further divided into, as the name you can understand, lymph cell, like lymphocytes. So B cells, T cells, and also natural killer cells. So they also can reach the connective tissue whenever there is any allergic reactions, or whenever they need to form the connective tissue, or whenever any microbe involved. So that is all about reactions, antigen antibody reactions. But here to form the connective tissue, as we discussed before, connective tissue can also act as defense mechanism, so by B cells, T cells, and natural killer cells. And the myeloid stem cells are nothing but RBC, WBC, and platelets. We know WBC are further divided into granulocytes and agranulocytes. Actually both have granules, but agranulocytes, in that we can't see the granules clearly, so it is named as agranulocytes. So the granulocytes are further divided into neutrophils and basophils, we know this. So neutrophils are also known as microphages because they can engulf some microparticles. And in agranulocytes we know we have lymphocyte, monocyte. And the monocyte, when it comes into action, it is known as macrophage. So you can see the neutrophil, how its nucleus and eosinophil, bilobe nucleus and basophil, nucleate shaped nucleus, and you can see it's multilobular nucleus. In neutrophil, we know we have both red and blue crystals, so name neutro. Eosino, we have only red crystals. Whenever we see under hematocylin and eosin strain H and D, we know. And in basophil, as the name baso, blue granules. And agranulocytes, as I said, we can't see the granules, but the lymphocytes has a big nucleus, and a monocyte also have kidney shaped nucleus. Sorry, basophil also have kidney shaped nucleus. Monocyte also have kidney shaped nucleus. So now let's see about our mast cell. So the mast cell is also present in all our body, as we discussed, except in our central nervous system. So whenever there is an allergic reaction, the most common cell in that will be the mast cell. So whenever, for example, let us take an example like whenever we inhale the pollen grains, so those alveolar and bronchial macros engulf in a normal person. So first let us understand normal person. So whenever we inhale the pollen grains in a normal person, the alveolar and bronchial macrophages easily engulf them, and the lysosome plus phagosome is fused. That is, in the phagosome now we have our pollen grain, and the lysosome get attached with it and they destruct the pollen. So this is in a normal person, there is no allergy. But whenever there is an allergic person who don't get this pollen into just this simple process, but it drags into long process, that is up to here. So you can see, so in an allergic person the pollen break partially only but not completely. So this is the problem arises, that as it is break partially by our macrophage, it gets fused with the protein and expressed on its surface mainly by our MHC class C2 molecules. So as it is expressing, the lymphocyte gets bind with the pollen and produce the plasma cell by converting the B cell. So we know whenever the B cell converts, it converts into antibodies. So the antipollen antibodies are formed against it. Now they go into the blood, lymph node and stick to the mast cell of the IgE. Always remember, only IgE type of antibody gets attached to the mast cell. So the mast cells at the bronchial system are activated, and next time whenever again the same person inhales the pollen, it will be a very big problem, because again the mast cells are activated, because as there is already anti-pollen antigen, so now it attacks on it. So activate the cell membrane, cytoplasm nucleus, and the phospholipase A2 is activated, which break down the lipids of their own cell, because it's very allergic reaction, so it break down its own cell lipids. So it is having severe pathways, like it produces leukotriene 4 and also prostaglandins. So whenever the prostaglandins are formed, which dilate the blood vessels, we all know, so the blood flow is increased in that area and the tissue swell inwards and there is mucosal edema. So whenever there is allergic reaction, we can see some red rashes or inflammation, and leukotrienes where the shrink endothelial cells and the tissue is swollen. So by leukotrienes and prostaglandin, however, the tissue is swollen and it is red. And next, whenever histamine is released, some eosinophilic factors, neutrophilic factors are released, they jump into the tissue and all cells, finally they damage the tissue. And next, they dilate the artery mainly by smooth muscle contraction, and there is mainly the narrowing of the airway, because as this process is taking in the bronchial system, the bronchial system is narrow and the person feels very irritated and he feels very difficult to breathe. This is known as dyspnea. And the nucleus of this cell also produces interleukin 1 and tumor necrosis factor. So because of this, there is more amount of inflammation in that area, and also there is proteases enzyme release which destroys the whole cell. So there is complete difficulty in breathing, that is known as dyspnea, that is, and also cause wheezing sounds. So now let us understand about adipocyte, that is one of the cells present in our connective tissue. So adipocytes, all we know, fat cells which store the fat in the form of energy and also in the form of triglyceride, and all fat cells together form the adipose tissue, and their heavily vascular is also supplied by many nerves, and they give the cushioning effect, temperature regulation also known as insulation, and they release the hormones mainly known as leptin which affect our appetite. So whenever we are hungry, or weight management is mainly done by this, and the blood so this hormone reaches the blood, from blood to central nervous system, mainly binds to the hypothalamus and control the temperature, appetite, weight, and also control the hypothalamus also controls the autonomic nervous system. So mainly adipocytes are of two types, like multilocular and uni or monolocular. So you can see this is a monolocular only one globulate, one locule fat cell. Multilocular, many fat cells are present. So multilocular is mainly seen in a brown adipose tissue, which is mainly found in the neonates. It is not found in the adults, and it gives a internal heating in the neonates. And monolocular adipocyte is mainly in white adipose tissue. It is found in the adults. So let us see some differences between brown and white fat. So the brown, we know, multilocular, present in neonates. They're having more number of mitochondria, and so that they can have more amount of body heat. And here the oxidative phosphorylation process doesn't take in the brown, whereas in white the oxidation phosphorylation takes place. Is normal. So what happens in oxidative phosphorylation is ADP plus phosphorus together form the ATP synthesis. So all know by oxidative phosphorylation in the mitochondria we form the ATP. So here what happens is this process, ADP to phosphorus into ATP. Here the thermogenic protein is like a barrier for this, that is stops this process and doesn't allow the hydrogen ions to enter into the pathway, so that this process is stopped. In turn, these hydrogen ions are used to store the energy so that the body heat is increased. So they don't allow the hydrogen movement, so that there is no ATP formed and they are converting into heat. So this is a process taking place in the brown fat. It is mainly present in the neonate, whereas white fat, it is present in the adults. It is unilocular and having mainly eccentric nucleus, and it is like a signet ring shape. Here you can see signet ring shape because nucleus is eccentrically placed. And there is not heat generation. Actually heat is also generated in this case, but not that much. And the storage and also release of fat takes place in the white tissue, and there are less number of mitochondria, and also there is more amount of this enzyme known as keratin protein. This keratin protein is more in case of white fat. So we completed our adipocyte and all those discussion. Now let us see how fat is released and how that is going on. So first free fatty acid, glycerol, free fatty acid with glycerol form the triglycerol, all we know. So first we know liver can produce fat by synthesizing because of some synthesized program, and from GIT we know by food also we get fat. So all this fat is mainly reached into blood vessel, and next from blood vessel it reach into our fat cells. So you can find here unilocular fat cell, because now we are talking about adults. In neonates, not brown fat. We are not discussing about brown fat. We are mainly discussing about our uniloculate fat cell, that is in adults. So energy mainly from the GIT come from chylomicron. So you can see this is a chylomicron which is coming from the GIT, that is our fat cell. So energy from liver comes from VLDL, that is very low density lipoprotein. So very low density lipoprotein. So both reach the blood or circulation. So fat cells can take only fatty acids and then synthesis glycerol. So this fat cell, they can take only fatty acids. So these are triglycerides, right? This VLDL, chylomicron, all are triglycerides. Even they are present in blood, but the fat cell cannot take them. So they take only fatty acids, that is they break the fatty acids and glycerol by the help of lipoprotein lipase. So by breaking them, they only take fatty acids, and the fat cell can produce its own glycerol by taking the glucose from outside and make its own glycerol, and inside later it forms a glycerol binding with fatty acid, triglycerol. So that is the process normally taking place. So this lipoprotein lipase is reaching the blood vessels and lying on the endothelial cells, and they break down, or as I discussed now, this chylomicron VLDL, and they take only fatty acids but out of the blood vessels, and the glycerol is left in the blood vessels, and also it can go back to the liver. So next, now the fat which is taken up, now fat cells which are taken up glucose, and they convert to the glycerol and add with fatty acids and form the triglycerides, as we discussed. So there are two states we know whenever we are fully eaten and in fasting stage. So all these are signaled by our insulin to our fat cells. So the fed state, that is whenever we are eaten more, then the glucose from the blood increase the insulin, and the receptors on the fat cells give the signals to the vesicles, and the vesicles are planted for glucose and make more glycerol, that is increase fat. So whenever we eat more, there is more fat storing in our fat cell, and insulin signals the nucleus for the fat cell, that is first the DNA is converted into mRNA into protein, we know this process, and they stick to the endothelium, that is our lipoprotein lipase. So this is how the insulin signals to form the lipoprotein lipase, and it is attached to our endothelium system, and it connects this breaks down this fatty acids and supply to the fat cell. And next, when you are in fasting stage, the reverse process takes place. That is, there is decreased amount of glucose, decrease insulin, so decrease of this signaling pathway, and decrease lipoprotein lipase, decrease glycerol. And whenever we are in fasting, we are having more kind of frustration because of increase in sympathetic activities, that is increase both epinephrine and norepinephrine. By this there are beta adrenergic receptors for them, and they are serpentine receptors. And next the G3 is stimulated, and adenocyclase is converted it converts the ATP into cyclic AMP, and it is increased, and it drives the protein known as protein kinase A, so that again the ATP is converted into ADP and phosphorus, so there is phosphorylation of the hormone sensitive lipase. So whenever there is phosphorylation of hormone sensitive lipase, then only the fatty acid gets attached with the glycerol. So whenever there is phosphorylation of hormone sensitive lipase, then the fatty acids gets detached from the glycerol. So this is a reverse process, right? So whenever in fasting stage our fats get less, so fatty acids dissolve from glycerol and it is taken back. So here we can check out this process. So whenever there is phosphorylated, then only hormone sensitive lipase is active, and they break the glycerol and they go to the liver and form the glucose, or also it may form the ketone body. And then these hormone sensitive lipase is phosphorylated by the protein kinase A. So obesity, let us see the two types of obesity. It is mainly hypertrophic and hypercellular. Hypertrophic obesity mainly seen in adults because number of fat cells are high and the size also increase in the fat cell. So mainly it is seen in the infants, but in adults if we see, only the size is increased in the cells. That is, in adults we can see this hypertrophic, and in hypercellular or hyperplastic we see in children, because in children the number of cells are also increasing, but in adults once the fat cells are formed, only that, but the size of the cell only keep on increasing. So now let us start the collagen fiber synthesis. So it is nothing but the fibroblast forms a collagen, important cell we know, but it is most abundant protein in the body. About 25% of our dry weight is mainly of collagen. So the genes are sequences of the nucleotides within the DNA and the synthesis of specific RNA. So this is biochemistry, we all know how genes are formed. So mRNA to peptide chain, DNA complementary RNA, cytoplasm. Next, translation studied by ribosomes, tRNA fit with RNA and translated into amino acids or peptide chain. So tRNA is always equal to DNA in case of coding. So you can see this is a triple helix of alpha chains mainly forming the collagen molecule. So there is alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3. These three chains are like triple helix which are forming the collagen molecule. So there are many alpha genes present extracellularly, and every cell have every gene, but they activate only functional or specific genes. So different cells are structurally and functionally different. So transcription first DNA to RNA, next mRNA peptide chain, and arranged on ribosomes and attached to rough endoplasmic reticulum, because proteins form only there. Translation and collagen protein is formed. So this is how the protein is formed. So first alpha 1 is called as pre-pro alpha peptide. So first alpha 1 pre-pro alpha peptide enter the endoplasmic reticulum. Next it is converted into pro alpha peptide. So first pre-pro alpha peptide, after entering into the endoplasmic reticulum, only pro alpha peptide. Next pro alpha peptide have glycine side chain and glycine side chain of 3 alpha chains bind tightly. So actually they are having glycine, so these 3 bind very tightly because of glycine presence. And whenever there is no glycine, then there is weak collagen, there are weak bones and multiple fractures in the fetus. This is known as osteogenesis imperfecta, also known as brittle bone syndrome. In this what happens is when there is congenital, that is severe case in fetus, only the child will have broken bones, and tarda is nothing but because of trauma, that is moderate. And next you can see here the process continues. So they pass by an enzyme which give the hydroxylation, that is like hooks like structures are attached in between, like this is glycine, this is XY, that is our choline or it may be lysine. So here the hooks are formed because of hydroxylation, mainly done by our enzyme known as propyl or lysine hydroxylase in the presence of vitamin C. So this is vitamin C dependent, that is propyl and lysine hydroxylase enzyme is mainly a vitamin C dependent enzyme. So whenever there is low vitamin C, what happens? Let us check out here. So So if there is decreased vitamin C, then there are no hooks for the peptide, so they are like loosely twist. When are hooks, then they are tightly twist. So when are no hooks, loosely twist, so there is again weak collagen formation. So when we know the condition, whenever vitamin C is low, then the condition is known as scurvy. So whenever a person has scurvy, their collagen is also very weak and they can't form, they have some difficulties or problems in a collagen. And we know bone here, one means bone is made up of type 1 collagen. So now let's see the continue our collagen fiber synthesis. So the pro alpha peptide, next it is attached with the hydroxyl group and also again added sugar to the hydroxylysine. So that is done by glycosylation by an enzyme. So what happens is, here you can see this end is a amine end and this is carboxyl end. So they start twisting at the carboxyl end mainly by the disulfide bond. So like this they twist, but there you can see at the ends their loose ends are left behind. So this loose ends and this process is continuing in our endoplasmic reticulum itself. So these loose ends are present, and the collagen molecule or procollagen. So up to here the molecule is called as collagen molecule or procollagen. So now these are packed in the vesicles known as transverse vesicles, and these are entering our Golgi apparatus, and now the procollagen along with the oligosaccharides, they are forming a secretory vesicles, and these are attached to the microtubules and microfilaments, and they enter into the surface of the cell membrane. So by this they are getting out of the cell membrane. So the process started in a DNA, next enter into endoplasmic reticulum, now just they are entering into Golgi and finally coming out of the cell, and the final product is called procollagen. So this is the intracellular steps of collagen. So all these are going inside the cell till now, because procollagen just now it is released out from the cell. So all these processes are going intracellular. Now let us see the extracellular events. So you can see here these loose ends are mainly break by enzymes, break the loose end, that is collagen peptidases mainly breaking these loose ends, and it is now forming the tropocollagen. So this process is taking outside the cell. The tropocollagen, after removing the loose ends, then is known as tropocollagen. So adjoining tropocollagens are attached by lysyl oxidase, which are acting on our lysines and hydroxyl lysines mainly, which are present. Now these are converted into aldehydes and giving the ultimate strength for the collagen. So this lysine oxidase may attach like bridges like this, so that it gives the ultimate strength for the collagen. So now the collagen formed is known as collagen fibril. So this is the collagen fibril, and many such collagen fibrils together form the collagen fibers. So this is how finally our collagen fibers are formed. Now you can see some syndromes like extracellular events. Here we are having the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, that is hyperstretching of skin and joints. This is mainly a group of diseases due to deficiency of collagen type 3 damage, and there is weak collagen. And there is also some other collagenopathy, and for example, this every collagen, as we know there are 3 alpha chains which are forming the collagen. So one collagen, first it should be left-handedly twisted, like that all the 3 should be left-handedly twisted, and next the 3 should be binded right-handedly. So this is the process which is taking place in this. So next hydrosilation and tropocollagen crosslink all giving. So this left-handed twisting, right-handed twisting, hydrosilation, and also this tropocollagen cross-linking, all these processes are mainly giving the strength to our collagen fiber. So you can see these are the light area and dark area stained between the collagen, and they are having a 67 nanometers of periodicity, and this light area and dark area are alternating. This collagen is mainly present in a type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 5. These are known as fibrillar collagens. So you can check out here. The collagen type 1 is mainly present in skin bone, 2 is present in cartilage, 3 is present in viscera. These are also known as reticular fibers. Mainly it is present in wounds, and type 5 is present in the embryo. So whenever type 3 collagen is excessive, then it may form keloids, and whenever the type 1 collagen is pathological, then it may form brittle bone syndrome, as we discussed. So all this type 1, type 3, type 2, type 5, all this together are called as fibrillar collagen. So their structure is like this. They maintain a periodicity of 67 nanometer. And next here we can see type 4 and type 7 collagen. Type 7 collagen is present in skin when it is pathological. Here epidermolysis bullosa is formed, that is the break between the bridge of epidermis and dermis. and this type 4 and type 7 are mainly having meshwork collagen. So type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4 are mainly fibrillar collagen, but the type 4 and type 7 are the meshwork collagen, mainly present in a kidney, that is in glomerular basement membrane, and also present around our capillaries inner ear. So whenever there is loose endo so remember that in the meshwork collagen the loose ends are always remaining, but there the loose ends are removed by our collagen peptidases, and here they are making the dimers with each other. So here the pathological in type 4 is renal failure, deafness, and this together forming a Alport syndrome. So whenever there is type 4 collagen damage, then it may lead to Alport syndrome, which contains mainly renal failure and also associated with deafness. So by this we complete all our connective tissue histology.